Do you like what we do here? I would assume so if you're listening to this. We have had a good year for growth this year. We've had substantial growth on all the podcast feeds with new subscribers. We have the new YouTube channel with a bunch of new subscribers there too. But we want to carry this over into 2026 so we can continue to provide high-quality entertainment, high-quality news, high-quality reviews, and all that kind of stuff. So what we're asking for going into next year is, if you have the ability, we're not asking for a lot, you can donate. Go to ko-fi.com/MWP News and make a donation. Everything you do goes towards making sure we can do things. That way I can take days off work to go and cover things early, or, things of that nature. Go to events and talk about them early, see advanced screenings. All that stuff goes into that budget. On top of that, if you can't afford that, and I realize right now things are tough and things are rough out there. If you can't afford that, the easiest thing you can do is subscribe and rate. No matter what you use to get this podcast, you can subscribe. Just hit the follow button, hit subscribe, whatever the button is on your thing, and then rate us. Give us 5 stars. That'll help more people find us, and the more people find us, the more we can, the more we'll be able to do, and we'll be able to get more happening. You can also go to mwpnews.com and sign up for our newsletter. There we will have articles and stuff like that about what we cover on this show. And we will also be doing more gaming content on the YouTube channel. If we can get, with more subscribers on there, we can do more. And that's youtube.com/@MWPnews. And again, thank you for a great year for us. Next year will be better. One of the big issues that I had this year that preempted me from doing a lot of what I wanted to has been resolved with the issue with my car, and that issue has been resolved. So going into this next year, we should be a lot more smooth sailing, but we do need your help to get more people listening and get what we're doing here out there. So just subscribe, tell your friends, and if you have the ability to, and you have the money, and you want to, and you think we're doing a good job, and we've earned that, go to ko-fi.com/MWP News and throw us whatever you think we deserve. And thank you, and enjoy this episode. Good evening and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. Wow, 3 in a row in a week. Haven't had this in quite some time. So we had Daredevil and we had Super Mario Galaxy movie yesterday, and now we have the drama today. And realistically, I don't know that I can't quite assess how I feel about this, because I'm of 2 minds. I love a good slice of life movie, which is kind of what this is. And full disclosure, if you want to go into this blind, which I think to an extent you might be better served doing, come back after you've seen the movie, because it's kind of hard to talk about the movie without addressing the core conceit. So spoilers, 3, 2, 1. The conceit is you have, Zendaya and Robert Pattinson are playing a engaged couple who are about to be married. And the two of them are getting, are in the final days. They're at a tasting of the food so they can lock in their catering with, and they're there with the best man and the maid of honor. And they get into a game of, well, what's the worst thing you've ever done? Maid of honor tells her story. The best man tells his story. Robert Pattinson can't think of anything. And then he gets to Zendaya, and she says that when she was in high school, she was not just like thinking about carrying out a school shooting. She was ready to do it, but there was another shooting that happened the same day, so she decided not to. And then she became a gun rights activist, or not gun rights, and a gun control activist. And that's really what this is. So she explains that like she was preparing to carry out the school shooting. The maid of honor, who's played by Alana Haim, freaks out because her cousin was paralyzed in a school shooting, and all of that, then the movie kind of ensues from there. Because then you have this interesting thing of like, how do you deal with someone who is telling you this a week before your wedding? Like, this is not something that they told while they were dating and you had time to digest. This is like, hey, we're getting married in 3 days, and here's this kind of major thing that I did not know about about the person who I'm about to tether my life to, and we're about to get married like imminently. This is something we really gotta deal with. And kind of like the issue that I have with the movie is that there are a few detours that I don't think are necessary in the plot to get us to the end. Like I get that like this is a lot to work through, and I think that had the movie kind of just worked through that, and they do play with something very interesting very early on, this idea of like you don't really know what's real. I mean, it's pretty clear what's real, but they play out how Zendaya or Emma is her character's name, how she's perceiving what could happen and how he could respond to this kind of massive information. You see her reacting to that in real time, and this fear of like, how is he going to react to this, and like what's the worst possible, like the catastrophization of what could happen. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing that they could have leaned into a little bit more, because like this idea that like she's in this weird space of like, this is a big thing that I revealed about my past, and the reaction that happened was very bad, and it's like, and now I don't know how to, you can't put this toothpaste back in the bottle, the genie is out, we're we got to deal with this now. And you get that like weird like flash sideways where it's like it's him and the best man talking, and it's like, no, just leave the country, like forget her, I'll call the police, just go. Like, and it's like that's her thinking about what this could be. And I think all of that's really interesting, and it's a really kind of interesting situation. And I think that like what's interesting too is that Robert Pattinson in the movie brings up the question that kind of was raised by me when she's telling the story of what happened, and I was like, I wonder how often this actually happens. Not the wedding going off the way it does or anything like that, but like someone preparing to carry out a mass shooting and then some happenstance happens that keeps it from happening. Like I don't recall like it's an interesting question to posit, and he asked that question at that point. Like he goes like, I wonder how often this happens. Like this idea like she didn't do it, she was considering doing it, and then she didn't. And so what happened then? Like, and I think it's an interesting conundrum to put this character in, because it's just one of those things where it's like we don't. It's an interesting thing, because like part of the issue here is that we're dealing with kind of on a broad scale is this idea that there's a major gun problem in the country, but there's also a mental health crisis in the country that leads people down these paths where they will end up carrying out these shootings, and that's kind of where this awkwardly puts this movie, where it's like, okay, so what if someone was thinking about that and they're not going to do it anymore, and like they've moved past that, what then? I wish the movie played more with that, and I think that's kind of what this is lacking. Is that it's like, maybe I'm not coming off right, but like I feel like the big issue is that it's like, for a movie that's about this kind of big issue, and about like, the ending is about accepting her, who she is, faults and all. Like, and in this case, it's a pretty fucking massive fault, but accepting her for who she is, and that's what it is. It's kind of, you know, interesting that, like, for something that's going to this length, it's still stigmatized to the point that it's like, yeah, people, like, you see what happened to her that led to her falling down this path and deciding that she was going to do this in the first place, but she just doesn't do it. And the idea that it's like, rather than being like, yeah, we're going to get therapy and we're going to address this, it's like, these are the early intervention signs. It's like, it's weird a little bit. And I think that's kind of like the big issue I have with, maybe I'm just coming off like an asshole and I don't want to. It's like, it feels weird that like she didn't, it's not like we're trying to do a reclamation project for a school shooter. We're doing a reclamation project for someone who was dealing with severe mental health issues and then realized what she was going to do. Because like, that's a big moment in the movie, is like through the flashback, seeing her like realize what she was doing, like, and be like, oh shit, like, what I was gonna, you know, do. Like, the moment where she has that empathy click, where, and the girl who plays younger Emma is fantastic. I don't know the actress's name, but she does a fantastic job of playing this person who is so ready to just carry out this act of violence, and then just like the switch of like, oh fuck, what am I doing? Like, it takes her seeing, like, oh, someone in her school died in a shooting, and that's something that, like, you know, she has to, you know, that's something she has to kind of deal with. But, like, I don't, for something, again, like I said, for something that's going, like, hey, she didn't do it. And again, it's like, if she was a school shooter, or she did do something like that, it would be very different, a very different situation. But that's not what this movie's about. But someone who was going through this mental health crisis was going to act it out in a heinous way, and then didn't. And it's like, I'm not saying we need to be entirely supportive, but like, I completely understand where Alana Haim is coming from in this movie. I forgot her character's name. But, like, it just feels weird, too, that, like, I think it does it, like, moderately well. I'm not saying it does it completely poorly or anything like that. But, like, I feel like there's a fine line that, you know, this movie kind of treads. And it's like, oh, like, I feel like there was definitely more that could have been done. Unfortunately, it's not exactly as cut and dry as, you know, as you know, we would like things to be. But I think, too, it's like the other thing that I think really undermines the movie for me and keeps it from being like a 5, I would say it's like 3.5. You know, we'll round up to 4. I'm feeling generous this week because I did just tear apart that fucking Neopets game. So it'll be a little bit nice. We'll say 4 because I do like the performances. But the thing I don't like is that Zendaya goes through a lot in this movie. And by the time we get to the wedding, she is, like, all of it is coming to a head for her. Like, we see that, like, you know, in a fit of, like, anxiety-induced, like, what the fuckery, Robert Pattinson is, Robert Pattinson is, you know, almost has sex with one of his co-workers, and, you know, is like very close, like arguably the closest you can possibly be to having sex with someone without actually having sex with that person. And he doesn't do it, and she finds out about it at the wedding, and, you know, and it leads to a whole big thing, and we get the, you know, he accidentally reveals, you know, partially what she was planning to do, and again, it's a whole big thing. And what I what I hate about movies like this is that it's like you have a guy who is fundamentally orchestrated most of the problems that have plagued the third act of this movie and led to the breakup. And I can't stand when this happens, but then they play him the victim. And I get that, like, yeah, he went out and it's like he kind of panicked and he didn't know what to do. And he just kind of like started rambling and he fell apart during the speech, and like I get all of that. I understand all of it. But for her, it's like she's the one who got cheated on. Then this giant secret got like partially ousted, and she thinks that like this other person is going around spreading it around because she's mad that that Zendaya got her fired. Like, it's a whole thing that, like, yeah, her life kind of unraveled a little bit. I wouldn't say entirely, but it did unravel like enough that it's like I don't think that she should be like overly sympathetic to him. And it's just one of the things that kind of bothers me in a movie where it's like, it reminds me of like, and it's not the same thing at all, but like in Star Wars where when Ben dies and they're on the Millennium Falcon and they're on the way to Yavin, and Leia, who like 20 minutes prior watched everyone she ever knew and loved get blown up by the Empire, has to console him because this guy he found in the desert 20 minutes before that got killed. And it's just like, really? So she's got to do the emotional labor for him too? Like, and that's the thing, is that it's like, I can't stand that kind of thing at the end of a movie where it's like, or anywhere in a movie where it's like, you know, let's just put things in perspective here for a second. Like, there's a lot going on. But like, I do like that, like, she extends the olive branch, and it's like, yeah, she's not going to be, you know, and she has a right to be mad, but the fact that she's just going to extend the olive branch to him at the end after everything goes wrong, like I said, it's a 4 out of 5. I think the movie is carried by performances by Robert Pattinson and Zendaya. It is largely a two-handed project. The guy who plays his friend, whose name I don't know, but I've definitely seen the actor before, he's pretty good too. I actually really liked Alana Haim in this movie. Not that I liked and agreed with her, but like, I think she played it very well. And for someone who is, you know, ostensibly a singer, I think she's a pretty good actress. Because, like, again, didn't really like the character in Licorice Pizza, because that's a very strange movie that was made by a guy who very clearly just wanted to fuck his babysitter growing up. I didn't like her in the movie, but she's a good actress. And I think here she's playing a different character from that. That's, you know, very very different. I would just be curious about what else can we see her in that's you know, beyond this. This is, I think, her third big film role, because she had this, she had what was the other one? She had this, she had I can't remember. Oh, she was in One Battle After Another very briefly. And then now here she's got this supporting role. By the time we get to Oscar season, I don't think this is going to be remembered by anyone. It's definitely the best movie I've seen so far in April. Yeah, I would say, yeah, I would definitely like this better than the Super Mario Galaxy movie. But yeah, we'll wrap up there for today. And until our next episode, which will probably be next week's Daredevil recap, have a great rest of your week.